The Season 7 meta is pretty diverse right now, with a lot of different options for all types of comps, rushing, diving, and spamming. Reinhardt, Doomfist, and Sigma are all really good tanks right now, and they're bringing along a lot of other heroes with them in their respective comps. And one of the most important things that makes these heroes work so well in their own styles is how strong their abilities are to help them fulfill that goal. This top 10 list goes over the strongest abilities right now, and it's been shaken up quite a bit thanks to a lot of new compositions being viable besides the Season 6 Orisa spam. With a lot of new heroes and some pretty insane abilities that make them worth practicing, check out the link in the description to get access to a GameLeap membership. There are tons of guides covering all roles, and how to get the most value out of each hero through positioning, ultimate usage, and advanced tips and tricks. Check it out and enjoy the video. At number 10, and also more of an honorable mention, is Roadhog's Take a Breather. After the hotfix, it can be pretty confidently said that it's actually a super strong ability at its peak performance. The Breather now has 40% damage reduction, which used to be Orisa's old Fortify, and Orisa's been strong for a long time, and will still be really good even if she got reverted to that number. It's definitely the bare minimum for a good damage resisting ability, but the bare minimum in this case is really good, and because it's so readily available, the skill ceiling and how you use the heal is also pretty top notch. It's definitely not so overpowered that it's going to save you from a full team hit squadron coming to wipe you off the face of the earth, but it's definitely enough to survive a ton of damage coming your way. And of course, the damage resistance is only one part of the ability, and the actual healing amount and duration makes it even more bulky. Although the healing effect can be negated, and the ability can be stunned, when using all of your resource meter, it's basically impossible to kill you. And if you consider that the full ability now recharges in 10 seconds thanks to the hotfix, it's actually an amazing ability compared to others with the same cooldown. 200 healing per second from one ability alone is scaring me a little bit, but it's still a pretty balanced ability. Not because of its drawbacks, and not even because it can be cancelled by stuns or anti-heals, but because Roadhog needs to peak and be aggressive to get value, and every time he does, his massive hitbox gets him tagged by anyone looking to build ultimate or even just deal effective damage when they can't reach anyone else. Most of the other abilities on this list have way more aggressive ways to be used, or are even more flexible in their defensive capabilities, but the new Breather is definitely still a force to be reckoned with. At number 9 is another old ability that's gotten a new use. Mei's Ice Wall hasn't been buffed, but it's definitely seeing a lot more usage with more players remembering how good it can be when you actually use it confidently and aggressively. It can also be used in tons of different ways, besides the old reliable strategy that's always worked since the dawn of time: hard focusing the enemy tank. One of the best alternate ways to use Mei's Ice Wall is breaking line of sight and even blocking ultimates and other abilities with it, which is sometimes only possible with this one ability. Shields can block some abilities like beam damage from Zarya and Symmetra, or even Roadhog's Hook and Break Whip Shot that can't be blocked by Defense Matrix or Kinetic Grasp. And on the other hand, those same Matrix abilities can eat abilities like Fire Strike or Blizzard that go straight through shields. But Ice Wall is the one ability that blocks literally everything, even the supposedly unblockable damage like Winston's Tesla Cannon or Rocket Punch for Doomfist. It may not have as much health as other abilities, but in a fast-paced game like Overwatch, most heroes can either melt normal shields down anyway or just go past them. But you can't exactly walk past a big fat glacier blocking your way. The instant value is what really matters. Even though it's not the most overpowered ability in the game, it's strong enough that it gives Mei most of her identity as a hero, and can't be underestimated. For number 8, Genji makes a special appearance, with one of the most underrated abilities in the game. And although it's underrated, it doesn't mean people aren't rating it well, it's just a lot better than most people give it credit for. Genji's Deflect is another hero-defining ability just like Mei's Ice Wall. Because Sombra's Hack and even Mei's Primary Fire and a ton of other abilities can go through it, doesn't mean it's not amazing at what it does, which is both defend Genji and give him a completely new type of damage output that no other hero can do. We've all been killed by an ally shooting Genji's Deflect, and although it's most of the time just a silly mistake, with how fast Genji can play and how he can instantly enter and exit Deflect, you actually have a lot of control over getting players to shoot it. The ability works twofold, aggressively and defensively in one, which is a classic cool ninja trope that works in the game too. It works as a special type of defensive ability too, since it blocks everything shields can, along with melee effects that go through every shield except for Zarya's bubbles that work differently than other shields. And it's obviously got that clutch potential with reflecting ultimates, not just blocking them like Mei can. Genji definitely deserves a lot more love, and although it feels pretty bad to get countered, a lot of heroes share the same woes. Just keep in mind how beefed up Genji can be when you're not playing as 5 sweats trying to ruin your day. Moving on to number 7, the aforementioned Rocket Punch that can be blocked by Ice Wall isn't really blocked by anything else. Orisa's Fortify is one thing, but if we're jumping straight to that, a 4-second cooldown traded for a 16.5 second one is pretty good. Even if you consider that Orisa actually has 12 seconds left after her Fortify ends, it's still 3 times more than Rocket Punch. But let's talk about the actual things the punch does, since if it really can't be blocked very often, then what can it do when it actually hits? The stun, knockback, and just area of effect damage make for a super stacked ability that, yeah, I'm gonna say it again, is only at 4 seconds. And when it comes to how much you can play around the ability, outside of just punching and hitting players, the fact that it can be cancelled as well gives you a lot of ways to outplay your opponents. Ryan and Brig have their own ways to knock down Doomfist in his punch, but if you just don't let the punch fly, you can bait the abilities easily, to go in later or even force bad ability usage that gets them punished. It's also a great way to build your power punch, by cancelling the punch with your block, but the punch itself is pretty amazing considering how it's just been nerfed too. I'm definitely buttering it up pretty much, but I've got a soft spot for versatile abilities with a short cooldown, and for Doomfist he's definitely got versatile covered. Number 6 is another stun, with Sigma's Accretion, better known as just the Rock. Although it's not as unblockable as Doomfist, it goes right through Matrix abilities no problem, giving Sigma extra counterplay against D.Va, Orisa, and Genji. The hitbox is also massive for its damage and stun duration, which is almost enough to give you an instant one-shot. It's one of the longest stuns in the game at 1.1 seconds, and the knockover effect like Earth Shatter makes it better than Orisa's Spear and even Doom's Punch, since it keeps them closer to you rather than knocking them away. Hitting your rock definitely makes or breaks a teamfight, and the same thing goes for dodging it as well on the receiving end. Sigma's abilities are so strong defensively already, and having arguably the best stun in the game makes it a lot more obvious why he's so good right now. For number 5 is our first support ability, and now we're getting into the overpowered zone. But we're starting off soft with Inspire, Brig's passive ability. Playing against her means always having to deal with the extra health on our team when you get close. It's a big shutdown for a lot of teams that want to go super hard with diving gauges, since the moment you start fighting the supports, they both start taking heals up on top of their normal healing sources. Inspire is one of the top abilities because realistically, you can't do anything about it. When it's activated, and if you don't time your engage perfectly, it's going to get worse by the second. For such a small healing amount, it doesn't seem like much of a nuisance, but with how much peel is in the game, having the consistent ticking 15 health per second ticking up on everyone in line of sight of the Brig is actually a big deal. Poke healing and burst healing have different merits, and Inspire is definitely the premier poke healing ability, keeping everyone topped up both before and during the fight. Despite the best efforts to nerf this ability without making it useless, Immortality Field is number 4, which goes to show how strong it really is. It's pretty crazy to think that when Baptiste first launched, his field had a 20-second cooldown, lasted for 8 seconds if not broken, and had 250 health. It's now got 5 extra seconds on the cooldown, a 5-second duration, and half of that initial health, and it's still one of the most annoying abilities in the game. Unlike Iliari's Pylon, which is now at 100 health, most heroes still can't kill Immortality Field fast enough that it won't already get good value. Supports do need these kinds of abilities, since clutch heals and saves are as interactive as clutch picks. It just becomes a bit of a problem when they're easy to pull off and they stick around for too long. Baptiste just happens to be one of the strongest heroes, and his signature ability has got to follow suit. At least it still requires good timing. Not throwing your field in time both lets your teammate die and wastes your precious 25-second cooldown for nothing. Starting off the top 3 is the one ability that got off a little bit too easy during the support nerfs earlier in the season. Kiriko's Protective Suzu was already a great ability before Mei and even Sigma started being played so much. And now with Rodok being way more playable, she's actually got the one perfect ability to help him achieve total domination. Suzu is stronger whenever there are a lot of abilities to cleanse, and right now there are more than ever before. Cleansing the effect of Biotic Nade is great, and Queen's Rampage is even better as an ultimate. Even slow effects are becoming way more common, not just with Rodok's new Pigpen, but Mei's Primary Fire and even Doomfist Meteor Strike, which has a massive slow on landing that's a big factor in securing kills. And now after the blanket support changes came through, Suzu actually has the lowest cooldown out of the high impact saving abilities, the other two being Immortality Field and Life Grip. It helps a lot to go for a second win when you can actually get 2 clutch saves in a fight instead of just 1 before it's basically over. For number 2, Sigma gets another feature, and although Kinetic Grasp is good, since absorbing infinite damage is always a plus, he actually has one of the best tanking abilities straight up through his Experimental Barrier, the official name for his reliable shield. Being able to so quickly put it up and down is amazing in fast-paced games, even if Sigma himself is more of a slow burn, building up to a high amount of pressure over long fights. The shield itself isn't anything special, it blocks all the abilities that a Reinhardt shield would and can be broken with a lot of damage, but the amount of repositioning you can do with it, depending on the situation, means you can do so much for yourself and your team if you start using it more dynamically. It's really consistent to use, and it's best used for blocking abilities rather than damage. Like another Sigma's Rock, Iliari's entire ultimate, and the one super critical ability that if you don't block it might lead to your whole team dying? Number 1. Biotic Grenade. It literally can't be any other ability at this point because of how defining it is in terms of fully shutting heroes out of the game. Countering heroes is one thing, like how Sigma can counter Bastion with all of his abilities, but Bastion is still playable against him. You just have to be smart about the timing of your turret form and more careful with exposing your hitbox too much against Sigma's Rock, but the effect Ana's Nade has on the game is pretty intense. Because healing is so important for tanks to survive in the game, even for those who don't heal themselves, shutting that off completely, even for a short duration, will always stop aggression or make an opportunity to capitalize on. And if you are one of the tanks who heals themselves, you get dunked even harder. It's hard to say that it's a healthy ability for the game, but without it there would definitely be a lot of unbearable full stack healing comps that really could otherwise not be beat. Being able to hit an entire team with an anti-heal is also insane, and gives Ana a lot of playmaking potential that makes her stronger with more experience. The boost heal effect on allies is also a mini version of the big saving abilities that Lifeweaver, Baptiste, and Kiriko have, because it allows for an insane amount of healing to be done in a short time, and not just by Ana either. Even though the cooldown has been increased, and even though it can be blocked by literally number 2 on this list, the amount of value from the one ability is immense, and affects more heroes than any other ability does. We'll have to see what Blizzard has in plans for the future, since there's been a lot of outcry over the absolute anti-heal effect, especially now with Rodok's rework and Mauga's upcoming release, another tank that gets really buffeted by the nade. That's it for the top 10 abilities in Season 7. Make sure to check out the GameLeap website if you want more in-depth guides on how to use these abilities to the fullest, and I'll see you next time.